How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Chaos Head Noah. So in the last episode, we entered Nanami's route, taking a little bit of a different turn in Chapter 6. Instead of there being a hand gifted to us in a lovely wrapped box, there was nothing in that lovely wrapped box, nothing in that aluminum foil except for Nanami's phone. And then we found Nanami outside, bare naked, and that's pretty much it, more or less. We did get the weird call that we get a little later on, I think somewhere maybe like chapter 8 or 9, where Nanami is like, give me back my hand or whatever. But I think we've kind of just swept that under the rug. She still has her hand, nothing wrong with it, I think. So what will happen here? Nanami wasn't coming back. Earlier at around noon, Nanami had gone to get clothes from home, as well as something to eat while she was out. With a carefree wave of her hand, she'd given me a "be back soon" and then left. 8 hours had passed since then. I hadn't gone online or even watched Bloodtoon. I'd simply sat on the couch doing nothing but waiting for Nanami to come back. Ever since she'd left, I'd been clutching my phone tightly, checking it every passing minute for any emails or calls from Nanami. Though I tried calling from my end, all I'd ever get was a message saying that the signal hadn't gone through, or that her phone was off. Why wasn't she coming back? Had our parents said something to her? If so, what would it have been? It doesn't matter if you two are siblings, both boys and girls your age shouldn't be staying in the same tiny room overnight or something. Sounds about... yeah, no. Maybe they were just giving her hell over losing her uniform. When I thought about it for a second, I realized that Nanami would have been wandering the streets of Shibuya totally nude before arriving at my base. To put it bluntly, this was actually pretty serious. It wouldn't surprise me if it had turned into an outright criminal case. Because of that, I wouldn't put it past our parents to freak out and call the police in a panic. But what if none of that was it? What if it was actually so much worse? What if this time, while Nanami was heading home, Shogun or maybe his underling Yua had kidnapped her? And if that wasn't bad enough, what if they had already killed her? The possibility of having another email from Shogun made me too scared to check my inbox at all.
Nanami, 僕を一人にしないで.
Please hurry and come back. Until I finally calm back down, I want you to forget all about school and stay by my side the whole time. Rimi promised me that, but she disappeared on me. If you disappeared, Nanami, Oh. Clutched in my hand, my cell phone began to vibrate. The second I noticed it, I immediately pressed the answer button, and the call connected.
もしもし、Nanami!
Uh-oh.
おい、Nanami、今どこにいる?
Is it the same call? No, it's different. A shudder ran through me. Oh god, had Shogun really abducted her?
どうして見捨てたの？ねえ、お兄。
将軍か。あいつに何かされたの？
痛いよ。右手が痛いの。
まただ。
Sluggishly lowering my phone, I mumbled that almost unconsciously. Deja vu. It was just like the call from yesterday. Back then, she'd said, give me back my right hand. I thought it was just a prank. But was I mistaken? I didn't know. I cowered in place, holding my head. Nanami, just where are you? Please come back already. It's weird. It's like it's a mix of the route that we're supposed to be on and this divergence. Staggering, I aimlessly made my way outside. The sky was already dark as could be. The moon was nowhere to be seen. The distant outline of Shibuya was covered in a faint light. Going outside was a start, but I still wasn't anywhere close to having the strength to find Nanami. Should I give her another call? It was certainly possible that she was still pranking me for the second day in a row. Maybe I was really overthinking this.
お兄、何してんの？
Startled, I looked toward the voice and saw Nanami standing there, looking puzzled. She must have changed clothes, given her outfit was different than what she had left. And I didn't read that last line for some reason.
今までどこに？
What did that say? She also had a shopping bag in her hand. Okay, that's important.
ごめんね、遅くなっちゃって。お母さんと一緒に新しい制服を買いに行ってたら、こんな時間になっちゃった。
That was the best answer I could have hoped for. Though even then, one thing still bothered me.
さっきの電話は？
電話って？ああ、メールで送れるって伝えておけばよかったね。
See, it's not who we're talking to here.
そうじゃなくて、電話してきただろ。僕の携帯に。
してないよ。お兄、ボケボケだね。
Among other things. Nanami's answers seemed pretty relaxed. This conversation was just beyond off. Talk about dissonance.
それより、今日の晩ご飯、なんだと思う？ひひ、なんと、ハンバーグだよ。ナナの手作りだよ。これから作るから、お兄も手伝ってね。
待てよ。電話したよな。右手を返せとか言ったよな。
もう、しつこい。言ってないってば。誰かと間違えてるんじゃないの？
Kinda sus. Putting on a very clearly sullen face, Nanami stormed into the container in a pout. Was I being deceived? It didn't really seem like it. Not to mention, Nanami wasn't really the type to pull such shit-tier pranks. Or at least, that was how I remembered her being. Uh-oh, my dogs aren't happy again. So what was that phone call then? Another one of Shogun's traps? Right then, I felt a chill on the nape of my neck, just like I was being watched. Whose eyes are those eyes? Yeah, see, I've got 2 big dogs and 2 rat dogs, and they both love to just howl for whatever reason. Not really sure what's going on now, but if you do hear them in the background, well, there's your context. They're just howling for whatever reason. They'll eventually stop. After we finish dinner...
ナナミ、話がある。
何？
Without looking up from the manga that she was reading, she gave me an apathetic reply. She'd been flipping through various volumes from the piles of manga stacked up in the corner of the room.
真面目な話だから、ちゃんと聞けよ。
どうしたの？急に改まっちゃって。
Perplexed, she closed the manga, straightened her back, and then faced me.
これでいい？
おとといのことは、何か思い出した。
The day before yesterday, Nanami had been cowering inside my container house completely naked. Her clothes, school bag, and bangle were all missing. As for her phone, it had been sent to me in a cardboard box covered in blood. Nothing about this was normal. There's also the alternative new generation case that has come up where a school uniform was cut up and then shoved down somebody's throat. And who lost their school uniform? Well, you're looking at her. Nanami had said herself that not even she knew what had happened. She'd been suffering from mild amnesia. Was she still dealing with it, though? Maybe she'd recovered since then? After all, she was acting like she was totally back to her usual self. When I asked her if she remembered anything now, Nanami immediately frowned and then lightly shook her head from side to side.
まだ。
全く。全然。
全く、全然。なるべくね、そのことは考えないようにしてたんだ。お母さんにも話してないし。おかげで、制服がなくなった理由、ごまかすの大変だったよ。
Huh. Maybe I should take her to the hospital after all. What field of study would amnesia even fall under? Psychiatry? Words. If it is psych, then we should probably see Dr. Takashina. Well, yeah, no, he's no longer among the world of the living. Because we remember that Dr. Takashina, that's his name, had been murdered as a part of NewGen. A sharp pain shot deep into my chest.
ナナミ。僕は命を狙われてる。
Nanami's eyes went wide. Of course, pretty much anyone would react like that if I suddenly said something so batshit, yeah, honestly. Problem was, the batshit stuff was the truth, so I decided to tell her everything. I wonder if she'll believe it. I'm wondering what her response will be here, her reaction overall. I told her about Shogun, about how I witnessed the third NewGen case, the crucifixion, and how after that, countless strange, terrifying things had been following me without end. I told her about the threatening emails and other messages Shogun had sent me right before she'd landed naked on my doorstep. And lastly, I told her about the 2 prank calls I'd received from a fake version of her. At first, Nanami forced a smile and said, "Big bro, don't you think you're being kinda delusional?" Well, yes, but eventually she realized that I wasn't joking around, and her expression stiffened.
いいか、これからしばらくは一人で外に出ちゃダメだ。どこで襲われるかわからないから。
お兄、ナナ、怖いよ。
僕だって怖いよ。だから二人で協力するんだ。
If the two of us stuck together, we could keep each other safe. Not that I had any clue how a shitty older brother like me could keep her safe, nor how I would support her feelings and whatnot. All I knew was that I couldn't bear it if she left me alone. I would have preferred help from someone who could have offered physical protection, but, well, my first choice would have been the police, but I was hesitant to talk to them. Those detectives I'd spoken to in front of the Kurenai conference hall hadn't shown themselves since then. What had happened to all that talk of defending me? Besides, they still might have suspected me of being the culprit behind the crucifixion. Trusting the police was out of the question. Until I could think of a better countermeasure, the only choice I had was to stay locked in my base. Sinking into the couch, Nanami wrapped her arms around herself and simply trembled. I don't really know what to think here, because I don't even know, like, if this is a delusion, if this is a, just an alternate path, or, like, we're just slightly straying off the main route, or what's happening here. Also, the room looks suddenly cleaner. Sitting on the couch myself, I stared idly at the Seroton poster hanging above my PC. The room was completely clean now. After telling Nanami everything, she'd gone silent for a moment out of fear, but breaking the silence with a, "You know what, let's clean up in here." I had taken 2 to 3 hours it had taken 2 to 3 hours for things to get this clean. Sorry, that confused me. Guess she had figured that keeping herself moving would mean she wouldn't have to think about everything else. She was lying in bed now. Huh. When was the last time that bed had been used for its intended purpose? I actually had used it for a couple months back when I'd first started living here. Or at least I felt like I had. It was always such a hassle cleaning this place up. Every time I did it, it was total hell, and I just couldn't wait for it to be over. As things were now, I was glad it was actually clean for once. Last night, Nanami had slept on the couch and I on the floor, so I couldn't be happier, or any happier, to be sleeping on the couch tonight, because goddamn, had that not been comfortable. That said, I was a night owl by nature, so unlike Nanami, I wouldn't be drifting off so early. Well, yesterday had already ended, so I guess right now was technically early. I usually hit the sack once the sky started to brighten up. So yeah, I was pretty much just lying there on the couch, staring off into space. Had Nanami fallen asleep yet? Judging by her breathing, probably not. Then, as if she'd somehow heard my thoughts, Nanami began to squirm around. She tossed and turned for a moment before eventually showing her face.
ねえ、お兄。
寝てなかったの？
うん。
Nanami looked like she had something on her mind. After a moment, she timidly spoke up.
一緒に寝てあげようか
Kinda sus, to be honest.
あ、別にナナが一緒に寝たいわけじゃないよ。ほら、ダメダメお兄は怖くて一人じゃ寝つけないみたいだから、本当は嫌だけど、今日だけは特別ってことで。
Her voice slowly got weaker and weaker as she spoke. Try as she might to keep up the front, at the end of the day, Nanami was just too scared to sleep. Well, I guess I can understand being fearful. And that keeping you up. So that was how I'd ended up in this situation.
もし、いやらしいことしたら、本気で怒るからね。
するわけないだろ。
わかんないじゃん。ついムラムラしちゃったりするんじゃないの？
しないって言ってるだろ。妹にムラムラなんかできるか。
それはそれでちょっとショック。少しくらいムラムラしてほしいな。
What the fuck kind of reaction is that?
誰がするか。文句ばっかり言うなら、一緒に寝るのはなしだ。
ごめんなさい。もう言いません。
Nanami went silent, pursing her lips in a pout. This was way more embarrassing than I'd anticipated. My heart was beating oddly fast. Sure, she was my sister, but never once had I ever been this close to a 3D girl. Not to mention, we were literally sleeping in the same bed. I'd audibly said I wasn't ever going to get turned on, but the truth was that had been a lie. Frankly speaking, I was already borderline. God, why did Nanami have to be staring at me? Close your eyes already. Don't look, it's embarrassing.
なんだか変な感じだね。ねえ、お兄はナナのこと鬱陶しいって思ってる？
I do.
Eh?
I'm just gonna put that right out there. Like, I guess she's got, like, appeal, maybe, in some sort of way, but she's just annoying. Like, I don't really see, like, a lot of purpose coming from her. I mean, she was right, I did. She was a brat. She was always yapping on and on about dumb shit, and she was always finding some way to interfere with my life. Though I suppose it was more fitting to say that I'd used to think of her that way. For the past couple days or so, I'd been spending more and more time with her. And during that time, even when she was feeling so incredibly weak, she'd still put on a smile and put up with a pathetic person like me. When I thought of it that way, it made me start to think. Maybe my sister was genuinely a source of comfort to me. Maybe even a really big one.
思ってないよ。
別に思われたって平気だよ。ただね、勘違いしてほしくないんだけど、ナナはお兄のこと嫌いなわけじゃないからね。
Where the hell did that come from?
お兄って前入院してたでしょ？それで
入院はしてない。通院してただけだ。
Oh, careful, careful.
嘘、入院してたじゃん。
してない。お前の勘違い。
そうだっけ？まあいいけど、とにかくお兄が学校も行けなくて大変だった時にナナがしっかりしなくちゃって思うようになったの。いつもお兄に口うるさくあれこれ言ってたのだってそういう理由なんだよ。お兄が嫌いだったからとかじゃないよ。昔はお兄が病院に行くようになる前はナナはいつもお兄に甘えてたよね。お兄はナナにとっては頼りになるお兄だった。お兄のこと大好きだった。
Past tense, huh?
だから今度はナナがしっかりして少しでもお兄の負担にならないようにして お兄の役に立とうと思って。あんまり役に立ててたかどうかわかんないけど。
ダメな兄貴でごめん。
Maybe it was because of where I was, but for whatever reason, it was easier to say things I wouldn't normally say.
気にしないでいいよ。兄弟だもん。それにナナは昔の頼りがいのあるお兄のことも知ってるし。どんなにダメでもナナはお兄のこと嫌いになんてならないからね。
ナナミ。
Oh man, come on, hold it together. So that was how Nanami felt. It was incredibly happy, or I was. At this point, I would never stop kicking myself for thinking that having a 3D sister would suck ass. Having a sister, having Nanami was a blessing.
でも今日はちょっとだけ甘えてもいい？さっきは強がり言っちゃったけど、本当はね、一人で横になってるとどんどん怖い想像ばっかりしちゃうんだ。だからお兄に甘えたかったの。安心したかったの。
Nestling her body up against mine, Nanami buried her face in my chest. She smelled really nice.
ずっとこうしたかったんだ。ずっとお兄に甘えたかったんだ。
I guess wanting to, be spoiled and actually treated like a, sister, or at least a sibling, is probably what led her to, I guess, the tsundere act. She's just wanting that attention. I couldn't help but embrace her slender body. I then hugged her tighter and tighter. As long as I had Nanami, nothing else mattered. I didn't need Seraton. I didn't need people bowing down to me in ESO. All I needed was Nanami, a girl of flesh and blood. A girl who had always had me on her mind. Feeling her warmth on my skin put my mind entirely at ease, and then the next thing I knew, I was falling into a deep, gentle sleep. Couldn't be me. Deep, gentle sleeps do not, associate all that well with me. When I woke up, I was lying on the couch.
あれ
That was weird. I thought I'd been asleep in my bed with Nanami. Had I woken up just enough to make my way over here, but not enough to realize it? I looked up at the bed, only to see a bulge under the sheets. Nanami must have still been asleep. I checked the time on my phone. Damn. Huh? I felt an odd sense of discomfort, but something wasn't right. I had no idea what, though. It was like my brain had no idea what was going on anymore. What date is it today? If I remember correctly, I was pretty sure that it wasn't November yet. I mean, how the hell could I have gone to sleep and then woken up at 8 p.m.? What, did that mean I'd slept for almost 20 hours straight? Yeah, not a chance. It didn't matter how much I'd let my guard down since I was with Nanami. There was no way I would have gotten that much shut-eye. I had to wonder if my phone was just broken, and therefore the date and time were wrong. But when I checked the date and time on my PC, were the same as my phone, a little past 8 p.m. on November 4th.
嘘だろ。嘘だよ。
A little suspicious here. I keep on saying things are suspicious because, yeah, things just aren't lining up. Things aren't having any, cohesiveness? Let's go with that. Muttering that to myself, I connected to the internet, opening both my browser and email as I scoured the latest news. But no matter where I looked, the date always indicated November 4th. I read through countless news articles before one in particular caught my eye. On October 27th, the day of the Intensity 5 earthquake, I guess I'm not reading that bit there, but let's see what this says. A Japanese boy claimed that he was going to use his clairvoyance to expose the true culprit behind the colloquially named NewGen, and that it would happen, or all happen, that very night at Scramble Crossing. The boy was deemed to be a worthy successor by the very popular psychic detective Yuri Brightman, adding some weight to his claim. As the letter of questionable origin was signed by Yuri Brightman himself, it was believed to be highly credible, leading Today TV and Fujisun TV to begin a live broadcast starting at 9 p.m. And yet their judgment would soon be found to be incredibly poor. In the end, the boy never showed, leaving the onlookers gathered in Scramble Crossing very upset. And with nowhere to direct their anger, the event was viewed as a travesty by the public. Leading a large amount of protests occurring against Today TV and Fujisun TV. Well, that's that's the Chapter 6 day, or moment, that we kind of just, I don't know, abandoned and dipped into a whole nother chapter. The article was dated October 28th, 1 week ago. Could all this be connected to Shogun and the email that he had sent summoning me? Shogun had definitely sent me an email saying to come to the front of come to the O front at 9 p.m. That couldn't be just random coincidence. It's a lot of dead people right there. And what's more, what the hell? Something was off here. Yeah, my dogs also agree. For one, the 6th NewGen case should have been the dominatrix. Oh, I actually got to go deal with that. Okay, that was fun. My dogs just started barking and howling right next to my window, so yeah, dogs, they're fun. Anyways, for one, the 6th NewGen case should have been the dominatrix, and 2, there had been a 7th NewGen case? Gokyun puzzle? NewGen, what? When had all that happened? Staring at the NewGen bulletin, I froze completely. It's like we're kind of coming back to reality a little bit. It took the sound of Saratan's voice to bring me back to myself. Apparently I had an ungodly amount of new emails and my computer was finally ready to download them all. Okay. Interesting. 53 new emails, and they were all from Shogun. Every single title was entirely confrontational. I'd never once seen Shogun swear like that before. Feelings of fear and confusion made a disgusting, nasty sweat beat across my entire body. Nervous as could be, I clicked open the most recent email. Not a single reply all week. I'm not the sort of moron you're making me out to be. If that's your plan, then I'll see to it that Nanami-chan gets tortured even more. If I overdo it a bit and she ends up dead, don't blame me for it. It'd be all your fault, not mine. You're the bad guy here. What was going on? What was going on, goddammit? Calm down, take a deep breath. Now stop for a second and think. This was all just a delusion. Yeah, it was all just a dream. Just a dream, Takumi. I was gonna wake up, and then the laugh track would ensue. Then I'd realize that I was sleeping with Nanami in my bed, and then I'd be back in reality. A knocking sound resounded from my door. It was coming from outside. Who was it? I held my breath, eyes glued to the door. Is our room messy again? Silence, no sign of life at all, but the moment I thought I'd just been hearing things, the knocking sound came again. I hadn't been hearing things. Oh God, was it Shogun? After all this time, had he finally come here to kill me? And yet, when I heard the voice from beyond the door, it was beyond even my wildest expectations. Uh-oh.
Nami.
Huh? How? My eyes snapped to the bed. Nanami should have been asleep there. There was a bulge right under the white sheets.
Oi, Nanami. Ukiro.
I climbed partway up the ladder to the bed, then told Nanami to wake up, and yet the sheets didn't move an inch. Something wasn't right.
Nanami!
I violently threw them off, and beneath them, oh, don't scare me, please God, were just a bunch of cardboard boxes. Okay. Nanami wasn't there. My mind went blank. And not only was Nanami not there, but the bed wasn't even clean. It would have been impossible to sleep in. Yeah, it's like all the cleaning that was done never actually happened. There were boxes upon boxes stuffed full of manga and eroge. That was how it had looked before Nanami had cleaned it up yesterday, but now it was right back to normal, right back to being a spot I used for storage. Wait, hadn't Nanami cleaned up yesterday? No, it's filthy again. I looked around the room. Not a damn thing about it was even close to clean. Why hadn't I noticed that sooner after waking up a few minutes ago? I was at a total loss. My memories were all jumbled up. I heard a voice from outside again, Nanami's voice. Who was that Nanami? Where was the Nanami I'd slept with? What happened to the naked, trembling Nanami? I didn't understand a damn thing. I stumbled my way to the door and then clung onto it. The inside was locked with a padlock. This entire container had been a locked room. It would have been impossible for Nanami to sneak out while I had been asleep. I was on the brink of tears. This had to be an attack from Shogun. Still, I knew I had to open the door because outside was Nanami's voice. It was incredibly, incredibly weak, and it was calling for me. And so I undid the lock, and then I slowly opened the door. Hello. Hello, real Nanami. Nanami was there, wearing her missing uniform, her entire body covered in blood, her right hand severed, wielding a blade I'd never seen before, a D-sword. Her hollow eyes turned toward me, stunned as could be. I couldn't say a word.
どうしてあの時来てくれなかったの？1週間も待ってたのに。お兄、助けてってずっと呼んでたのに。
This was a delusion. This was a delusion. This was a delusion.
右手が痛いの。返して。7の右手。右手を返して。朝起きてから右手がちょっとズキズキするの。
Which was real? Which was a delusion? What was I looking at? Who had I been talking to until now? Where had that Nanami gone? Where had this Nanami come from?
お兄。
Suddenly, I heard Nanami's voice come from behind me. In front of me was Nanami covered in blood. Behind me was Nanami calling out to me. Fear gripping me, I nervously turned around, and behind me was Nanami, wearing the clothes that I had lent her, her right hand still perfectly attached. There were two Nanamis.
そいつ誰？
The two Nanamis spoke in unison. When Nanami saw Nanami, her expression grew puzzled. When Nanami also saw Nanami, her expression grew tearful. Caught between two Nanamis, I...
これは妄想だ。
sank to the floor, clutching my head. If this was a delusion, I wanted to wake up already. I didn't want to see a delusion this horrifying, and yet no matter how much I wanted to wake up, I couldn't get back to reality.
その偽物。何なの？
The bloodstained Nanami shifted and swayed. She held onto her D-sword, a sword both pitiful and sinister, with a height comparable to even her own.
なんで偽物がお兄と一緒にいるの？そいつのせいでナナを助けに来てくれなかったの？
Yes.
ナナは偽物じゃないよ。そっちこそそんな変な剣持って偽物じゃん。
Both voices belonged to Nanami. Both faces belonged to Nanami. Both called me Big Bro. Which Nanami was real? Which Nanami was fake? Were they both real? Were they both fake?
偽物のくせにお兄から離れてよ
The bloodstained Nanami brandished her D-sword with one hand and then swung it with incredible ease. The end of it was aimed straight toward the non-bloodstained Nanami's neck. Making no attempt to avoid it, Nanami froze in place. It hit her head on. The brutal, unforgiving edge of the D-sword dug into her neck and then it slipped right through. The non-bloodstained Nanami should have been decapitated, and yet there wasn't even a drop of blood. She wasn't even injured. She simply stood there, just as she had been the whole time. There wasn't any doubt that Nanami had swung the D-sword, and with the amount of force behind it, Nanami's head should have been blown clean off.
やっぱり偽物あナナはなんで
Stop.
偽物だからだよ偽物じゃない
I don't know, that's kind of what a fake would sound like, you know? Shut up already.
お兄離れてそいつから離れて違うよお兄ナナはここにいるよ
Now, hold on. She said, get away from them. Who's them?
黙れよ
I couldn't help but scream. It was all just so goddamn confusing.
どっちかが妄想だ僕の妹はナナミは二人は存在しないんだ
I alternated between the two Nanamis. Oh, excuse me, comparing them. Both looked like Nanami to me, so I turned to the one wearing my sweatshirt. I wished from the bottom of my heart that this Nanami was real. That the Nanami I'd held tightly in my bed was real. And so I followed my desire. I reached my hand toward her face. Also, I could gently brush her cheek. But, just like the D-sword before me, my hand slipped right through her. Even though Nanami was right there, I couldn't touch her. I'd felt nothing there. As if she was a holographic projection. I was overwhelmed by an uncontrollable sadness. Tears flooded from my eyes in large drops.
嘘だよナナは偽物じゃないよねえお兄そうだよねそうだって言ってよ
Nanami tried to cling on to me, and I tried to hold her in return. And yet, just as I feared, the Nanami before me had no substance. My hand slipped right through her body.
違うもん
You know, here's an idea. You guys know how starfish, like, if you, like, cut them or some shit, or, like, a piece of them falls off, it could just, like, regenerate from, like, any end? What if we actually did get Nanami's hand? And Nanami's hand being the only physical thing, and the rest that came off of her hand was just a fake version of Nanami. Just in a similar sense that they're able to perceive a hand on the real version of Nanami, but it's not really there. Does that make any sense? That's my prediction here. I'm locked in.
ここにいるもん
Nanami's right hand firmly grasped my left. There you go. I could feel it. I could feel her frail strength grasping my hand. I could feel neither her body nor her head nor her neck. Only her right hand was touching me.
化け物
The Nanami without a right hand shouted out.
お兄から今すぐ離れて
The very next second, all power drained from her body, and while still holding onto her D-sword, she fell to the ground with a thud. Sweat was pouring from that Nanami's forehead. The color was draining from her face. Considering her right hand had been cut off, and she was bleeding profusely, it was only a matter of time until she passed out. An awful thought passed through my mind. I knew it couldn't be true, but I couldn't stop myself from thinking about it. In my mind, it was the only answer to all of this. An answer that was no less than a nightmare.
そうだよ。
What's up, Rimi? What are you doing here? I heard a voice. A voice that wasn't Nanami's.
タクが今考えた通りなの。
Behind the fallen Nanami, standing outside the door was...
リミ。
Wielding a wing-like D-sword, Sakihata Rimi was standing right there. Our eyes met. She looked at me with deeply sad eyes.
あなたが今右手を握っているそのナナちゃんはあなたがリアルブートしようとしている存在。
Oh. Real boot?
現実に耐えられなくなったあなたが産んだの。理想度を持ってるナナちゃんが本物なんだよ。嘘言わないでよ。ナナの方が本物だもん。たく、あなたはナナちゃんの切断された手首を見てショック状態になったの。そして妄想した。そんな手首は見てないって。ナナちゃんは5体満足で無事だって。
Okay. Yeah, see, I was on the right track there. I hadn't seen a hand. Shogun had only sent a blood-stained cell phone. Or had the hand been there? Maybe I'd been trying not to see it. Yeah, there it is. There it is right there. Maybe I'd been refusing to. Which, you know, would lead to that. So she was saying that Nanami being naked was something I'd made up? And that the real Nanami, the one who was standing in front of me covered in blood and missing her right hand, had been kidnapped by Shogun?
嘘だ。
本当なの。ねえタク、今すぐ妄想するのをやめて。あなたがしようとしていることは人間を一人丸々作り出すっていう恐ろしい行為なんだよ。あなたは今核兵器のエネルギーをも上回る力を使ってる。そのせいでこの1週間あなたはほとんど昏睡状態だった。自覚してないかもしれないけど、タク、このままじゃ本当にこの世界に2人のナナちゃんがいることになるの。
Not if we kill the real one.
それにあなたがその妄想に力を使えば使うほど命の灯火が失われていく人がいるんだよ。だから。
嘘だ。
Yeah, we kind of understand her reasoning here. I mean, probably not best to be, like, delusioning up somebody in the first place, but even if there wasn't that, you know, the risk of killing the original Takumi, probably still a good thing to, like, stop Takumi from doing this, to be completely honest. But no, I understand her reasoning as well. She doesn't want the original to die.
ごめんね。あなたを守れなかった私の責任だよね。だけどお願い。辛いかもしれないけど現実を見て。今すぐ妄想を止めて。お兄、消さないで。これ以上妄想を続けるなら私があなたを殺す。
I shook off Nanami's right hand. It was all too much. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't have the slightest clue what to believe. Believing Rimi's explanation, I just couldn't. Believing Nanami, who was standing there in tears, I just couldn't. Believing Nanami, who was lying there grasping a D-sword, I just couldn't. Believing myself and what I felt, I just could not. What I wished for was something simple, a quiet, peaceful life with nothing to disturb it. A wonderful, blissful future with Nanami, with my sister. That was all I wished for. That was all I hoped for. Was I not allowed that wish? Was I not allowed that hope? Then, everyone should just disappear. This whole world should just be erased. And in my own head, disturbed by no one, inside my delusion, I could live in a world neither real nor fake. A world with just the two of us. Just me and one Nanami.
僕は
I peered into Nanami's eyes. They were glistening with tears. Nanami was looking at me.
ナナミがいてくれればそれでいいんだ
I whispered that aloud, and the very next second... Uh-oh. The world jolted.
サードベルト
Yeah, I guess time really went by, huh? Oh, well, later, nerds. My wish had come true. The world was enveloped in white. All and everything was consumed by it. And as literally as could be, it was all erased. Is that the ending? Is that the ending to this route? No way. Nope. We're not done yet. When I opened my eyes, I saw the familiar ceiling of my container house. I was lying on my back right on top of my bed. Huh. Had I fallen asleep? It felt like I'd just been dreaming about something truly horrifying. Like I'd just been dreaming about something truly nauseating. But it had been just a dream. It couldn't have been anything else. Whether that was reality or just a dream didn't matter to me. Whether this was reality or just a delusion didn't matter to me. Or didn't matter either. I felt a gentle weight on my chest. Moving my eyes toward it, I saw her. It was Nanami sprawled out on my chest. Our eyes met. Nanami was watching me closely. Her eyes were wet. Her cheeks dyed the color of cherry blossoms.
昨日の夜はありがとう
At first, I didn't understand what she meant.
ナナの気持ち受け入れてくれて嬉しかったお兄に愛してもらえて嬉しかったお兄のこと今までよりずっと好きになっちゃった
Right, so this must have been one of those so-called character routes you saw in Eroge. And surprisingly enough, I took the situation in stride. Nanami seemed cuter than ever right now. I couldn't help but think about how lovable she was. I saw her both as my sister and as a girl.
これからもたくさんナナのこと愛してね
だが断るって言ったら
Old habits die hard, I guess. Nanami's face soured as she sat up.
もう真面目な話してるのにお兄のバカ
She got out of bed. Crap, how could I possibly make it up to her? That was when I noticed what was in my hand. Bringing it closer to my face, I realized what it was, a bangle. It wasn't the one I'd given her before, however. And this one was this one was way fancier, way cuter, excuse me. It would look really good on her. Thinking that to myself, I got out of bed too.
ナナミこれプレゼント
I slipped it on Nanami's right hand, or right wrist, as she stared blankly at me. It was a little like putting a wedding ring on her finger, and that made me feel pretty damn awkward.
わあかわいいバングルだナナにくれるの
When I nodded, Nanami smiled from the bottom of her heart. She looked happier than I'd ever seen her before.
大事にするね
ナナミ僕たちはずっと一緒だよね
いきなりどうしたの
ずっと一緒にいたいんだナナミとずっと一緒に
やだなそんな大胆なこと言い出すなんてお兄らしくないよ熱でもあるのあ、わかったからかってるんでしょ
本気だよ
お兄それって兄弟としてそれとも
Ah, come on.
一人の女の子として
Come on, game. Don't do this.
両方。
We don't have to.
両方。両方か。お兄の気持ち、初めて聞けたかも。ナナのこと、そんな風に思ってたんだ。
キモいかな。
キモくないよ。むしろすごく嬉しい。まあ、お兄がそこまで言ってくれたんだし、しょうがないから、ナナも一緒にいてあげるよ。ただし、一つだけね、条件があるの。
条件？
ね。
Nanami squirmed ever so slightly, her face turned bright red. Then she stared directly into my eyes.
キスしてほしいな。
I told you, game, we don't have to do this. Those were her words. I'd do anything Nanami asked. My mind was already made up. She and I would live together, just the two of us. I didn't need anything else as long as I had Nanami. Nothing else mattered.
ダメ？兄弟でキスなんて不潔かな？
Yes. I shook my head. I'm nodding my
そんな
head.
ことないよ。
お兄。
God damn it.
大好き。
With those words, Nanami leapt into my arms and kissed me. I was kissing my little sister. My sister's sweet sighs passed through my lips. I was overwhelmed with happiness. Along with feelings of intense fulfillment, I was brimming with love for Nanami. But for some reason, for only just a moment, I felt incredibly sad. Warm drops found their way down my cheeks. Well. Okay. And those tears flowed. And the world where Nanami was, I wouldn't let anyone harm it. I'd make absolutely sure. Okay, I guess I'm not reading that. As soon as it pops up, it just disappears. So fuck me, right? You know, just whatever. Whatever, I guess. I guess we also have to watch the credits. I knew something was wrong. And now we kind of see how this is kind of playing out maybe for the character routes. Where maybe we get stuck in a delusion of some sort. Or maybe that was just this case. Maybe the other routes will be different. But I knew something was wrong. And I knew, like, not from the get-go, but seeing the screen, like, wave that way as if we were in a delusion was such an early hint. So, yeah, I was able to piece the puzzle pieces together. I knew something just did not feel right. And plus, getting those phone calls, it was kind of bringing us back to reality ever so slightly. And what a fucked ending that was, honestly. I mean, is it incest? Yeah, but it's also a delusion. We're just trapped in a delusion right now. And that's how it will be going forward until we die. Just like the bad ending we got. Could you call this a bad ending? Yeah, probably. Or I'm going to. It's definitely not a happy one because, well, the third melt still happens. We are de-swordless, and we're trapped in a delusion made by ourselves. The original Takumi is probably dead, and, you know, here we are, unable to do anything but, I guess, do what our heart desires, and it's not progress, and just pretend that everything's okay with our sister. And that be that. Kind of fucked up, to be honest. I will say, I would not call this a good ending whatsoever. A neat little route. I don't really have much else to say. Just a character route. We got to spend a little bit more time with Nanami. It wasn't terrible. It was interesting, okay? And it was rather short, actually. Daydream, yay! That was quite literally what was going on there, wasn't it? Okay, so that means, yep, we have 3 out of the 9 endings. We're really getting there, aren't we? and 69% of the album achievement rate, which is very nice indeed. We still have a while to go, I think, on the tips list. So what the plan is going into the next episode, we'll do some more delusions. Yay! We'll just do the negative delusions and then try to get into whoever's route is suggested next, jump in, and do the same thing we just did. And then after that, the plan there will be to just go neutral until maybe we get further into the story if we can, and go into the next character route. Just knock out all these character routes until we're ready for that absolute final ending, whatever that will entail. Thank you all for watching this episode. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.